Good evening to you all. I am Dr. K. Pushpam, Assistant Professor in Sociology. Today our topic is research problem and hypothesis. In this topics, we need to discuss about identification or selection of research problem, formulation of research problem, precautions to be taken while selecting a research problem, and steps in the research process. So first we need to discuss about selection of a research problem. So what is a research problem? The selection of a problem is the first steps in research. The term problem means a questions or issue to be examined. The selection of a problem for research is not an easy task. Itself is a problem. It is least amenable to formal methodological treatment. Vision and imaginative insight plays an important role in this process. This problem of selection arises when a student has to undertake a research as a part of his course requirement. In some universities, a project study is prescribed as a requirement for even undergraduate programs. In several universities, a project study is a partial requirement of postgraduate programs like MCOM, MBA, MSW, etc. So, the research is an important requirement of MPhil and doctoral degree of programs. So, when a researcher experiences some difficulty, either practical or theoretical situation, and trying to find a solution for the same, then we have sources of problems. So, what are the sources of problems? The sources from which one may be able to identify research problems or develop problem awareness are like reading, academic experience, daily experience, exposure to field situation, consultation, brainstorming, research findings, and intuitions. So, the reading, when we critically study books and articles relating to the subject of our interest, pertinent questions may arise in our mind. Similarly, areas of research may strike to our mind when we read research reports. Then we need to discuss academic experience. In academic experience related to our classroom lectures, class discussions, seminar discussions, and out of class exchanges of ideas with fellow students and professors will suggest many stimulating problems to be studied. Then next one is daily experience. So daily experience is dynamic. Our life is also dynamic. We learn new things and undergo new experiences in every day. If we are alert, inquisitive, and sensitive to life situations, we may hit upon questions worth of investigations. It is a mark of scientific genius to be sensitive to difficulties where less gifted people pass untroubled by doubts. So, story about Newton justifies to this. Though apples might have fallen on the heads of people before Newton's time, only the sensitive Newton applied his mind on this event, which led to the discovery of law of gratifications. Then another one is exposure to field situation. So the situations, field visits, internship training, and extension work provide exposure to practical problems which call for study. So that is a field exposure situations. Then another one is consultations. So, discussions with experts, researchers, administrators, and business executives will help a researcher to identify meaningful problems for research. Then, another one is brainstorming. Intensified discussion within a group of interested persons may often be a means of identifying pertinent questions and of developing new ideas about a problem. Then, another one is research. Research on one problem may suggest problems for further research. Then another last one is last sources of problem and inductions. Sometimes new ideas may strike to one's mind like a flash. Reflective mind is spring of knowledge. So these are the sources of problem. So in this, then another one is we are moving on process of identifications. So the process of identification of problems for academic research may consist of the following steps. One is selection of the discipline. The second one is demarcating the broad area or a particular aspect of the selected subject. And third one is identify two or more specific topics in the selected broad area. So first one is selection of the discipline. So the discipline or subject in one proposes to do research may be selected. For example, economics, commerce, management and technology or psychology, etc. The selection of the discipline is easy. One can select any subject which one has studied thoroughly and which has interested him most, where one has to do research in his field of specialization. For example, marketing, management or finance management or financial management in MBA program. So one has to choose the subject of one's specialization. And another one is demarcating the broad area or a particular aspect of the selected subject. The second step is to select a particular aspect of the selected subject. For example, if the selected subject is financial management, then one may select capital budgeting, financial average, working capital, management or profit management as specific area of the study. So one who says that one is willing to do research on any aspect of the discipline does not mean business or does not know oneself. So one should identify his specific area of interest. Interest in a particular area of a subject develops out of educational background, reading a good book or inspiration received from a professor. Then last step is identifying two or more specific topics in the selected broad area. So this is the final step in identification of problem. This requires a grasp of the branch of the subject as a whole and awareness of work already done on it. A review of concerned literature including research theses and survey of research published by the research councils like Indian Council of Social Science Research, New Delhi, and intensive reading and reflective thinking and discussion with a guide will help a student in identifying specific topics or issues for research. So, both an uncharted path and a well trodden path are dangerous to a beginner in research. So, if he chooses an unexplored problem, he has to prove in the dark and may get frustrated. On the other hand, if he selects a problem which has already been thoroughly studied, he may not learn anything new nor contribute anything to the knowledge. It is desirable for him to adopt a via media approach and he may identify problems on which he can get the guidance of a few articles or books. A student cannot just select any one of the identified problems for his research. He has to evaluate them for choosing the most appropriate one. So, how can this evaluation be done? Against what criteria? So, we have a certain criteria of selection. The selection of one appropriate researchable problem out of the identified problems requires evaluation of those alternative against certain criteria. These criteria may be grouped into internal criteria and external criteria. So, what is internal criteria? So, the internal criteria consist of researcher interest, researcher competitions, and researcher owns sources and finance and time. Then another one is the external factors. The external factors include researchability of the problem, its importance and urgency. Third one is novelty of the problem, then feasibility and facilities. Sixth one is usefulness and social relevance and research personal. Personal is like administration, PERSONNEL, personal. Okay, so first we need to discuss about internal criteria. The first point is researcher interest. The problem should interest the researcher and be a challenge to him without interest and curiosity. He may not develop sustained perseverance. Even a small difficulty may become an excuse for discontinuing the study. So, interest in the problem depends upon the researcher's educational background, experience, outlook, and sensitivity. And another one is researcher competence. A mere interest in a problem will not do. The researcher must be competent to plan and carry out a study of the problem. He must have the ability to grasp and deal with it. He must possess adequate knowledge of the subject matter, relevant methodology and statistical procedure. Then only we are compete with the researchers and other research topics. And another one is researcher's own resources. In case of a researcher to be done by a researcher on his own, consideration of his own financial resource is pertinent. Does the cost involved in conducting the study of the problem is within the means of the researcher? If it is beyond this means, he will not be able to complete the work unless he gets some external financial support. Same time resource is more important than finance. Research is a time consuming process. What is the time that the researcher can be able to spare for the research work? Is it adequate to meet the time requirements of the problem? If not, the work cannot be completed within the prescribed time limit, as it is difficult to foresee the eventual time constraint. It is desirable to overestimate the time requirement and to underestimate the time availability. So, in this connection, available dictates of time, say 5 or 10 minutes at a time, should not be counted, as nothing would be done in 5 or 10 minutes. Only large chunks of time available should be counted. For example, it's 2 years or 3 years or 10 years. That count only, that time will be counted. And another one is researchability. So, what is researchability? The researchability is a character of external criteria. So, the researchability of the problem should be researchable, that is amenable for finding answers to the questions involved in it through scientific method. Although every problem in science involves a questions or a series of questions, not every question qualifies as a scientific problem. To be researchable, a question must be one for which observation or the data collection in the real world can provide the answer. Many questions cannot be answered on the basis of information alone. They may involve value elements. Example, what is merit for the purpose of the employee promotion, and what is the fairness to the workers. And some questions may not be researchable because procedure or techniques are inadequate. Example, how will a new physical policy affect distributive justice? When new management trainees have potential for a top management. And another external criteria is importance and urgency. So, the problems recurring investigations are unlimited, but available research efforts are very much limited. Therefore, in selecting problems for research, their relative importance and significance should be considered. An important and urgent problem should be given priority over an unimportant one. For example, in industrial management today, the problems of productivity, capacity utilization, motivation, and industrial unrest are more important than problems of financial leverage, planning, vertical or horizontal integration, marketing, etc. The research must be focused on useful and urgent problems. And another criteria is novelty or originality. The problem must have novelty. So the novelty means if we have a originality or origin of the problem, there is no use of wasting one's time and energy on a problem already studied thoroughly by others. So we selecting the new problem and giving the new ideas for the problem novelty. So this does not mean that replication is always needless. So in social sciences, in some cases, it is appropriate to replicate or repeat a study in order to verify the validity of its findings to a different situations. And another one is feasibility. So this is also external criteria. A problem may be a new one and also important, but if research on it is not feasible, it cannot be selected. Hence, feasibility is a very important consideration. Some of the questions that should be considered in examining the feasibility are suitable research techniques such as measurement devices and techniques of analysis available. And another one is, are accurate and reliable data available? Then the reliability of the findings depends upon the quality of the data. In some cases, available data may be tinged by emotions, tinged by emotions and ethnic conflicts, strikes and lockouts, poverty and affluence are examples of topics heavily weighted by emotions. And another one is, will the authorities of the concerned institutions extend the record cooperations in furnishing data or permit access to records? Some organizations like commercial banks, solo proprietary and partnership concerns and private limited companies do not easily extend cooperation to the researchers. And will the respondents be willing to be interviewed? And another question is, can the study be completed within the time available? So on the basis of the considerations of the above questions, the feasibility of the problem should be determined. And another one is facilities. The research requires certain facilities such as well-equipped library facility, suitable and competent guidance, data processing facility, etc. Hence, the availability of the facilities relevant to the problem must be considered. The next, moving on, usefulness and social relevance. So above all, the study of the problem should make significant contributions to the concerned body of knowledge or to the solution of some significant practical problem. It should be socially relevant. This consideration is particularly important in the case of higher level academic research and sponsored research. The sponsored from ICSS or UGC or Social Action Program or Helpage in India, like that the sponsored research will get. And another one is research personnel. The research undertaken by professors and by research organizations require the services of investigators and research officers. But in India and other developing countries, research has not yet become a prospective professions. Hence, talented persons are not attracted to the research projects. Employment in research projects is just considered a stopgap arrangement, securing a regular placement Therefore, appropriate, qualified, and experienced research personnel are not easily available for the study of some problems. And finally, we need to conclude for this a criteria of the problem. So each identified problem must be evaluated in terms of the above internal and criteria, and the most appropriate one may be selected by a research scholar. The overall guideline to be followed in this selection process is select a feasible and researchable problem which is interesting to you and within your competence and manageable within the available time and resources, and at the same time has some importance and social relevance and for which record facilities are available. So these are the external criteria elements for the research process. So how to we are identify our process of identification problem. So next we go to see the topic of formulation of the selected problem. So in this topic seeing in next class. Thank you so much. Thank you.